All right, Greg Gutfeld. So Fox News has since the since the departure of Tucker, Fox News has kind of been losing of a lot of viewership, a lot of support from staunch conservatives, where it used to be kind of the conservative voice. But that's the thing about now, right? We have so many other media sources online and such that you don't have to you have to rely on the mainstream news anymore, right? These, you know, uh, this Fox was always the conservative side, and excuse me, CNBC and CNN and that were always the left side, right? So now that we've kind of seen, we've seen what they did to Tucker. It's like everything after the fact is kind of going to be a bit, disingenuous from Fox. But Greg Gutfeld, I should say, he's kind of all right. I'm going to read this article about him. This is the Washington Post. So already left leaning, they're going to talk about Greg Gutfeld. Why do I keep saying field? So you're gonna detect all kinds of detest in there for him. I won't read too much because it's going to get pretty hard to swallow for a while here. But Fox host suggests that the answer to divisions is war, not voting. Greg Gutfeld is so valuable to Fox News that he is hosting gigs on two spots on the channel's weekday lineup. At 5 p.m., he's a co-host of The Five, a show that's basically what would result if Donald Trump and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell got, got to pick the hosts for The View. Then after the primetime hosts do their thing, Gutfeld hosts Gutfeld, a show uh, that's basically what would result if Donald Trump got to pick Bill Maher's guest. It's hilarious. Like you just can't get Donald Trump's name out of your mouth if you're in the Washington Post. I think they tell him, okay, so you're going to write about, the weather. Find a way to put Trump in there. Just blame him for chemtrails or something. Just do something. Get Donald Trump's name in there because it's good for our ratings. In other words, Gutfeld is deeply enmeshed in the Fox News universe. Washington Post profile last year explored this lengthy history with the company, which has now evolved into his being the guy asked to deliver jokes that flip back and forth over the boundary between amusing and bitter, or really that occasionally flit into amusing territory briefly. Okay, that's kind of I can see his point there. I've watched Gutfeld a few times, and when you're watching his monologues and such, it's not overly funny. Like you're not laughing out loud or anything, but it's kind of like Bill Maher when you're watching Bill Maher's uh, his opening monologue. It's you're like, meh, okay, you can giggle once in a while or whatever, but it's kind of like a lot of time you're going, ooh, yeah, that's punchy. So I kind of get what he's saying there. That's maybe the smartest thing he's written in the article. During the five on Thursday, Gutfeld was nowhere near amusing territory. Incensed by another of the channel's endless lineup of stories about crime in urban America, Gutfeld offered up a tirade in which he suggested that voting in elections was futile and that the only solution to America's problems might be war, as it was in 1861. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's hyperbole, of course. Yeah. And there's a lot of that that goes on now on both sides. Hyperbole all the way. Like, that we're going to go into civil war on, as far as conservatives saying on the left, saying that racism has never been any worse than it is now. Like it's all hyperbole at this point, but that's the sensationalism that sells stories that make people read stuff. That's what you call clickbait. That's what all this bullshit is. It's just to make you read it and then uh, get a response. How many videos have you seen online where somebody's posting something that is completely wrong? Like it might be, they show something, let's just say construction or something. They show something that's done completely wrong and they'll say thoughts. And then the comment section will just go nuts. Well, that helps that video. That video or that meme or post or whatever, it it gets a lot of it's now getting engagement. That's what they're looking for. This kind of shit they're looking for engagement. Doesn't matter what it is. It was before with first. Just getting the news in first. Doesn't matter if you're right, just be first. You don't have to retract shit. You just put it out there and if you're wrong, so what? You might have to put a retraction at some point. You put a little blurb in. Oh, sorry, and move on. Doesn't matter. But the views and the clicks and and all the engagement doesn't go away. And people still say the bullshit that you wrote about in that article because they didn't read the retraction. So, anyways, so that's my feeling on that. Uh, okay, what else here we got here? So he's talking. Okay, so he's talking about here. This is Gutfeld talking about January 6th and um, some of the different states' take on crime and such. So he says only certain people get criminal mulligans. He said, referring to the do-over golf and or do-over rule in golf. And January 6th protesters, they don't get criminal mulligans. And here's why: they're the oppressor, right? So the oppressed get criminal mulligans. He continued on a little riff in which Krasner's decision was framed through a racial justice lens that Gutfeld derides. Let's compare the rights between criminals and victims. He continued, okay, the criminals, they get a mulligan. They get to steal up to $900 worth of stuff. They can loiter, sleep, and shoot up in public areas, including playgrounds. They can loot and burn and call it social justice. They can pile up dozens of arrests and never do time. Meanwhile, what about us? Well, we have to change our lives to accommodate risk wherever we go. We have to move out of cities for the sake of the safety of our families and for our own safety. That's what's happening. We're being driven out of cities by the oppressed. We had a war over slavery. We knew slavery was inhumane and immoral, but somehow we couldn't solve slavery peacefully. It was an evil, he said, but one side refused to acknowledge that it was evil because it was too big of an admission for them to make. Doesn't that feel that way now with this defiant refusal to reverse this decline argues against the survival of our country? What does that leave you with? He continued. It leaves you with the need to make war to bring peace because you have to side, or you have a side that cannot change, because then that means an admission that their beliefs have been corrupt all the time. So in a way, you have to force them to surrender. Okay, so there's the hyperbole, right? Yeah, is he right about, there are pockets and elements of that that's true? Sure, the J6 stuff, people were charged with seditious conspiracy and all these different charges, and just are doing years in jail for this thing. I can understand people that did some shit, sure, but people that were just there, some people that were just in the wrong place, wrong time, maybe even if, okay, let's say they smashed a window or something. 4 years in prison, smashing a window. Okay, that seems legit. Burn down a building or something, or tear down a statue. What are you getting? I don't hear of the rioters getting the same type treatment, or the we'll call them the COVID rioters. So I understand that point of view, but you know, it's this way of charging up people when they read that. You go, yeah, yeah, that's right, that's right. It's not in every case, but in certain cases, yeah, it is. But both sides do this. So Gutfeld's not, he's not the only one guilty of this kind of thing. I think he's just kind of Fox News's new Tucker, if you will. Like now that Tucker's gone, they need somebody to charge up the audiences. Maybe the next guy that, if he says enough of the stuff that skirts the line, he's fine. But the minute he jumps over that line, well, they'll end him just the same as Tucker. But for now, I guess he's the guy.